Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're stepping right past the yellow tape and straight into the meticulous, high-stakes world of forensic science. We're going to decode the crime scene and explore how experts literally read the silent testimony left behind when all other evidence has completely vanished. It's a fast-paced, highly scientific investigative process, and I am absolutely thrilled to walk you through the whole shebang. Let's get into it.
So imagine this chilling scenario. A victim has been missing for a long time. Maybe their body was dumped in a remote, unforgiving location, or even scavenged by animals over months or years. When this happens, traditional flesh markers, the physical features we usually rely on to identify a person, are completely destroyed. The trail has gone entirely cold. So, what happens then? How do investigators bring closure to a case that literally no longer has a face? Okay, let's dive into this. The answer to that mystery is forensic anthropology. Basically, this is the application of physical anthropology to the legal process, specifically stepping in to identify human remains that are skeletonized, badly decomposed, or otherwise completely unrecognizable. Think of the forensic anthropologist as the ultimate scientific detective. When law enforcement hits a brick wall because the physical body just doesn't exist like it once did, these experts step in to pull incredible details from what's left behind.
Phase 1, the crime scene and initial investigation. To really grasp how they do this, we need to look at the procedural arc. And a key thing to understand here is that the meticulous work of these experts starts long before they ever reach the bright lights of the laboratory.
A skeletal investigation actually follows 3 strict chronological phases. First up is discovery, which encompasses all the work done up to the exact moment the skeletal remains are found. Next is recovery. And actually, scratch that, it's not just picking up bones. It's the highly specialized, careful removal of the remains and their transport to the lab. Finally, we reach examination, the formal stage where the deep laboratory analysis really kicks off.
But how did they successfully recover this evidence in the first place? Well, by drawing on some incredibly diverse fields. A forensic anthropologist isn't just a bone expert. They use training in archaeology and taphonomy to properly excavate graves and understand how the surrounding environment has altered the site. They even use cultural and biological anthropology right there at the scene to identify markers that might just hint at a victim's origin, nationality, or religion. Phase 2, reading the bones. Once the recovery is complete, this is where the true interrogation begins. The laboratory analysis is essentially a series of crucial, rapid-fire questions that the anthropologist has to answer to build a profile of the victim. And the very first question they ask might actually shock you. Is the material found at the scene actually bone? I know it sounds obvious, but you would be genuinely surprised by how often highly trained investigators are tricked by their own eyes out in the field.
Things like tree roots, pieces of plastic, foam insulation, rocks, and even turtle shells are frequently mistaken for human skeletal remains. No way, right? But it brilliantly illustrates why expert visual detection is absolutely crucial. And this gets even harder if a fire is involved. Our source material notes that while bones are rarely entirely consumed by fire, the heat deforms them, makes them super brittle, and completely changes their color and texture, making visual detection a total nightmare for the untrained eye.
Okay, so once they confirm it is bone, they move to the next logical step in the investigation. Is it human or animal? Establishing the entire forensic importance of a crime scene hinges completely on this one answer. If it's animal, the investigation might just end right there. Now, what's really interesting about this is how easily large mammals can mimic us. The bones of bears, pigs, deer, and big dogs are routinely confused with adult human bones. Even small animal bones can be mistaken for human fetal or juvenile bones. So, forensic anthropologists have to rely on a deep knowledge of skeletal morphology and bone maturity to distinguish a deceptively similar animal bone from a human one. Let's move to the next question and see how this builds. If the bones are definitively human, the investigator must ask how many people were present at the scene. This becomes a massive puzzle when you're dealing with commingled or fragmented remains at a really complex, chaotic crime scene. And this brilliant number 12 is a key part of solving that puzzle. 12 represents the exact number of pairs of ribs in a single standard human skeleton. It's just simple math, really. If an anthropologist is sorting through a pile of remains and finds a 13th left rib, they immediately know with absolute scientific certainty that there is more than one victim involved. This fixed biological inventory is their baseline.
1 skull, 2 pairs of arm and leg bones, 24 vertebrae, 1 pelvis. By meticulously counting and categorizing every single fragment against the standard inventory, anthropologists mathematically deduce the absolute minimum number of individuals involved in a crime.
So once the number of victims is locked down, we arrive at the core of personal identification, which is really the ultimate goal of this whole procedural arc. They must answer, who were they? To figure this out, they look for 4 main biological characteristics: age, sex, ancestry, and stature.
The crucial point to understand here is how specific bones act as distinct identity markers. To estimate someone's age at the time of death, they look at cranial sutures, the teeth, and whether the growth centers of the bones, known as epiphyseal unions, have fused together. To determine sex, they rely heavily on morphological differences in the adult skeleton, specifically examining the skull, the pelvis, and the mandible. And to calculate a person's living height, or stature, they actually run mathematical formulas using the measured lengths of the long bones of the limbs. It is wild. The bones literally hold the blueprint of a living person. Phase 3, the big picture. Now that we've decoded the individual, let's look at how this highly specific discipline fits into the wider medico-legal investigation to bring ultimate closure to a case.
Modern forensic science is highly interdisciplinary. A forensic anthropologist doesn't just work in a vacuum. They work in equal coordination with forensic pathologists and forensic odontologists. While the anthropologist examines the tiny structures on the skeleton to find evidence of previous trauma or disease, the pathologist conducts the autopsy and determines the chemical or medical cause of death. They collaborate seamlessly to validate their findings and build an airtight scientific case. Which brings us to the core mission of the field. Regardless of the body's condition, the ultimate goal is always to identify the remains and accurately determine the circumstances surrounding an unexplained death. This meticulous examination of bone matters so much because it literally gives a voice back to those who have been silenced, providing vital answers to grieving families and the justice system. And what's truly reassuring is the ongoing professionalization of this field. Thanks to this standardized, rigorous study provided by global institutions, law enforcement doesn't have to just rely on guesswork anymore. They can rely on hard, peer-reviewed scientific certainty. So I want to leave you with this really provocative thought to ponder. We spend our whole lives so focused on our external appearance, right? But if your physical form was entirely stripped away, what secrets, what history, and what unique biological truths would your bones reveal to the trained eye of a forensic anthropologist? It's a fascinating reminder of the incredible resilience of biological evidence. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.